you have a uterus and you still get menstrual periods, you are going through 28 to 32 days of a hormonal roller coaster, period.
We really are like raging hormones all day, every day. And nobody blinks an eye. And when you introduce birth control, it's like, oh no, this birth control is what's making me depressed. It's always very beneficial to keep up with your provider, keep up with your therapist, to kind of evaluate what's going on in life that may be causing these issues and not necessarily my birth control method.
Welcome to Birds.Bees.Bodies, a Planned Parenthood of Southeast and North Florida podcast where we break barriers, tear down stigmas, and promote open discussions on sexual and reproductive health. Get the buzz on topics from puberty to menopause, contraception to conception. No topic is off limits. So sit back, relax, and let's dive into a judgment-free zone to promote sexual wellness.
Welcome to a new season of Birds, Bees, Bodies, a Planned Parenthood of Southeast and North Florida podcast. I am your host, Michelle Quesada, Vice President of Communications for the organization, along with Clara T, who is also a communications manager for us at the organization. And today we are joined by two amazing, incredible guests at our affiliate, our organization. Alexandra, who is an RN for a registered nurse for our organization and in our health centers, and Sarah, who's also a certified nurse and midwife and our director of clinical care. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so excited to be here. We're back for season 3. Can you believe it? 3 seasons.
3 seasons so far. And with the best of the best guests.
Yes, absolutely.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, it's been great. Absolutely. And, on this show, we talk about all things reproductive healthcare. We talk about mental health care. We've talked about current events and how it's, impacted reproductive healthcare and your mental health care as well. So today we're talking about birth control, and we have had episodes before on this topic, but really what we're diving into today is specific things about birth control that you may not know, including all the misinformation that is being spread right now about birth control. So let's take it back 1 second. Birth control, most people in their lifetime have heard of birth control or even used it. I think more than 99% of women use birth control in some shape or form throughout their entire lifetime. And there's a lot of misinformation out there about birth control. We saw right after the elections in November, we saw a tremendous increase in birth control patients, people seeking birth control, especially IUDs. So intrauterine devices that are also a long-acting form of birth control. And we wanted to talk about the misinformation because we're living at a time right now where there's a lot of information out there and everybody's an expert, right? But we're hearing some things that are kind of disturbing, that are trying to attack our reproductive rights, our reproductive health care, and they're trying to spread misinformation about what birth control does. So maybe we start there. Let's set the tone. Sarah, if you want to just share, what is birth control? What does it do?
Birth control is many different methods that actually can help you to plan when you want to be pregnant. They also do all kinds of non-contraceptive things, right? So it's a contraceptive choice that different methods that women can choose to help prevent a pregnancy or plan their pregnancy better, that also may have non-contraceptive benefits, like making your periods lighter or eliminating your period altogether, which so many women think, ooh, maybe that's a bad thing, not getting a period. But that's not necessarily true when you know the reason behind it, the medical rationale behind it, the science.
There's a lot of misinformation out there. One of the things that I've heard that's been very disturbing is comments that have been made about IUDs, intrauterine devices, and that they cause abortions. And an IUD is meant to prevent a pregnancy that hasn't occurred yet. So, Alexandra, if you want to just touch on, what an IUD does and different types of IUDs that are available out there.
Sure. So Michelle and Clara, thank you guys for inviting me and having me on the podcast. But there are a number of IUDs out there. hormonal and non-hormonal or copper. And they are, like we said, intrauterine contraceptive devices that help prevent pregnancy. Now, working in the clinic, I have seen with my own eyes where people actually are pregnant with the intrauterine device inside. So how does that prevent, I mean, how does that make an abortion? I have no idea because clearly they're pregnant, sometimes with the IUD. So that is absolutely untrue. An IUD won't eliminate an existing pregnancy if one were to occur. So we can knock that one right out of the park.
And all this kind of misinformation, things like what you just said, Alexandra, for example, talking about this or continuing talking about what you were saying, where do you think people are getting all this misinformation from? Is social media, is from family, from at school, from other generations in your family? What do you think?
Absolutely, literally everything that you just named. Social media probably being one of the main ones, and even a quick Google search. Sometimes, Wikipedia can pop up, and we all know anybody can post on, and edit Wikipedia pages. So doing simple searches as opposed to doing some deep research on these devices can cause that type of misinformation. Hearing stories from other people, side effects from that other people may have experienced. We know that side effects, they're different. They vary from person to person. So what one person may have experienced may not necessarily be your experience, but people do tend to take others' experiences and kind of make them their own before they even, try for themselves. So I think a lot of misconceptions may come from that also.
Not to mention, there is a total anti-reproductive health movement going on right now, where there are people of influence who are also spreading misinformation, and people are catching on to that as well. What is the most outlandish thing that you've heard about birth control that is just a very scary myth that's being shared?
I think one of the biggest things that I've heard is that methods of birth control can prevent future pregnancies, like can actually impact your fertility, which is so not true with any method. People are like, oh, I've been on the pill 2 years. I have to come off because I want to be pregnant in 6 years, or whatever their plan is. But not just with that method. You hear it with every method, like an IUD, could damage my uterus and then I won't be able to ever have a pregnancy, or that's a huge one. I think same thing with Depo. You'll hear women say, I can't be on Depo because that could prevent me from getting pregnant in the future. And that is not true for any method that is currently available.
And the majority of methods, like your fertility, whatever it was before you went on birth control, returns pretty quickly. I know Depo may vary. I've been on the Depo shot before. After I had my son, I went on Depo, and I think I did like 3 rounds of the shots, which is every 10 to 14 weeks. So several months I was on it. And it did take a while for me to get my period back again after that. But my fertility did return. I just had my second son 4 months ago. So, I think people need to realize that everybody's body is different. So what may be normal for one person may not be normal for another, but it's going to return back to what it was prior to you starting birth control.
Exactly. I was on the pill for like 22 years, and I thought, it's time to plan my family. And I thought, this is going to take a little while. I've been on it all these years. Let me just go off and get ready. And within 2 cycles, I was pregnant.
Wow.
So that is such a myth.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are the rare cases where people could get pregnant on birth control. We've seen it happen.
No method. Yeah, no method is 100% effective. LARCs are 99.9. They're the most highly effective, but nothing is 100%. Right. Not even a tubal ligation or a vasectomy is 100%. Right.
I know. I've heard of people who got the vasectomy, and of course they didn't go back to do the checkup that you're supposed to do several weeks later to make sure there's no longer any semen in your seminal fluid. And sure enough, they got their wife pregnant, and it was like, should have gone back for that checkup. So the swimmers aren't swimming.
Exactly.
But yeah, I think. Oh, go ahead, Clara.
Oh no, I was going to ask related to all this that you guys are talking about. We often hear concerns about birth control affecting, well, mood or causing depression. So, what does the science actually say? I don't know if you, Sarah or Alexandra, wants to answer and talk a little bit about this.
Yeah, there are some side effects to different methods, and there are some birth control pills, even the depot, because that anything that's hormonal can actually have the potential to create changes in our mood. Anything that's hormonal. So generally, it's the pill, the depot, that we see the greatest effect with that. But even some women want their Nexplanon or their IUD out if it's a hormonal IUD because they're noticing changes in their mood.
Let's just talk about that really quick because I know we have to stay on schedule here, but I don't think people realize that birth control aside, if you have a uterus and you still get menstrual periods, you are going through 28 to 32 days of a hormonal roller coaster period. Like, you know what I mean? From the moment you start your period to ovulation to if there's no implantation to shedding back your uterus again, the layer, bottom layer of your uterus. And so like there's all these hormones that are surging through us at all times, right? It's just fun.
That's a really good point, Michelle. Yeah, exactly. So the potential is always there.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you said that because I mean we really are like raging hormones all day, every day. And nobody blinks an eye, at that. We kind of take on even the stressors of life, those play a role in our mood also, but we don't really blink an eye at that. But then when you introduce birth control, it's like, oh no, this birth control is what's making me depressed. The birth control is what's making me, having all of these mood swings. And while it may affect, some things or exacerbate, it's always very beneficial to keep up with your provider, keep up with your therapist, to kind of evaluate what's going on in life that may be causing these issues and not necessarily my birth control method.
Yeah. And what's the time frame you normally give somebody who starts a new birth control? Like give it 3 to 6 months.
3 to 6 months.
Okay.
Exactly. 3 to 6 months is perfect to really see because if we put in an IUD, it may take your body 3 to 6 months to really kind of regulate. If you start on the pill, it may take you 3 to 6 months to regulate. So whatever method you're doing, if you can just give it a little bit of time, generally
nothing is a magic wand. I think people expect birth control to be a magic wand. Like you start taking it and everything's going to be fine and normal. You're going to feel the same way. It's just, you're not even going to know it's there. You will eventually, right? That's what IUDs are for. Set it and forget it. Like eventually your body adjusts to it, but there is an adjustment period for some people. Other people handle it just fine.
Not a problem. Exactly. We're all different.
Well,
we're all amazing, but we're all different.
Absolutely.
Right.
Since we're on that topic about, there are a lot of things that we don't know about certain birth controls, that things you hear about, oh yes, there's a ring, there's a shot, there's a pill, there's the IUD. But what are some rare facts about these types of birth control that people may not know about?
I think Sarah kind of started touching on it a little bit earlier, and these may not necessarily be rare. I think people are coming around to knowing that contraceptives do more than just prevent or, delay pregnancy. They can help improve your acne. They can help improve or regulate your menstrual cycle. And like Sarah said earlier, completely eliminate it at all. When I had my IUD in, I did not have a cycle for nearly the entire time that it was in. And that was just the most amazing thing ever. But it came right back, like as soon as I got it removed. So they do, do like a lot of other things. I've seen some studies where some contraceptives can help prevent like ovarian cancers and things like that. So Sarah, that's more like Sarah's
ovarian cysts, right? For women that have, there's a lot of non-contraceptual benefits to being on different methods.
And sometimes they can even improve our mood. We talked a lot about, being depressed and stuff like that, but sometimes those hormones can, turn it around and make us feel a little bit better.
Exactly.
And what are other, this is making me think, what are other of maybe unexpected side effects? They can be good or bad that people rarely talk about? You guys were, for example, talking about the risk of reducing the risk of ovarian cysts. And also, how about libido? Does this affect libido?
Your libido. Sometimes it's the stress of just knowing you have a really great method, and that you're preventing. And so that in and of itself can improve your libido, right? Because then the pressure is kind of off for an unplanned pregnancy. But hormonal pills, birth control pills, can also improve your libido.
And when we talk about the birth control methods themselves, like for instance, before I ever even started Depo-Provera, I had no idea that I didn't have to take a shot for, another 10 to 14 weeks. That this was something that I thought at first, oh my God, I'm going to have to do this every single month, but no. And then the same thing with IUDs, that depending on which one you choose, it can last several years. The Nexplanon, the arm implant, just, how effective it is. One of the most effective long acting reversible contraceptive methods. So what are some of the rare facts about some of these that may not be out in the open that people don't know about?
That's a great question. But back to your original point there, I think that's a great place to start when you're looking at which method is best for me, right? I think that's basic. Where do I want to start? Do I want to do something every single time I have intercourse? Do I want to do something once every 3 months? Do I want to do something every day? Do I want to just fix it and forget it for 3 years, 5 years, 8 years, 12 years? Right? And that also makes your method so much more cost effective, right? When you look at what you're paying per day. But back to your question, where were we?
And I just thought of one actually, vasectomy, because I'm sure you get patients who come in who want to do a vasectomy, but they think that they can reverse it at some point.
Yes, we do. Just thinking that how easy, I don't have to think about it. Let me do this for 2 or 3 years. And then when we're ready to plan a pregnancy, then we can get it reversed. Not quite that simple when you go tubal ligation or vasectomy route. It doesn't, the chances of a successful reversal are very slim.
Yeah, so I mean, it's
about twice we're making that decision. Otherwise, we are today basically talking about many other methods, right, that we can use before we get to the vasectomy, which is not the easiest to revert, as you're saying, Sarah.
Yeah. I think most people have the misconception that it is a simple reversible method, and it's not. And even if you do reverse it, which is, very complicated to do from what I hear, there's a possibility that your fertility may not return in that.
Right. Scar tissue builds up, right, in the tube. There's scar tissue, and so the chances of it being successful, a successful reversal, are very slim.
I will say though, there are more and more males who are seeking out vasectomy, and they're in different situations in their life. Either they have children and they're done having children and they don't want to expand their family any further, so this is a very permanent decision for them. They don't want to put the burden of birth control, continue the burden of birth control on their partner, so they have decided to have the vasectomy. And we've heard from those men who didn't regret it. They were, they're like, this is the best decision I ever made. Or other men who just maybe at a point in their life where maybe they just don't want children or don't expect to ever have children, and have gotten to a point where, they're ready to make that decision. So I think the abortion laws and bans across our country have made people think more about vasectomy as a permanent option. And it's been great. We've seen the demand go up in our health centers for vasectomy. So I don't want to knock it. I'm just saying.
No, it's a great method. It's a great method. I think you just have to go into it being sure of your decision. That it is a permanent choice.
Absolutely. So let's talk about, we talked heavily about IUDs, and one of the things that have come up in recent headlines over the last year is every time, someone with a uterus heard IUD as a form of birth control, they were like, oh no, that's too painful, I'm not going to do that. Or people shared their horror stories of like when they got an IUD inserted and how painful it was. And I think healthcare providers have caught up and are getting better at presenting other pain management options. So let's talk about that for a second. You know, I'm sure that's one of the first concerns you hear from a patient, like, is it going to hurt?
And it is uncomfortable, right? It is uncomfortable. Anytime the cervix dilates, the uterus contracts, which is cramping, right? We feel the cramping. But for most women, even taking ibuprofen prior to their appointment can really help with that. We also offer some sedation to help women, can relieve your anxiety a little bit and make it a more comfortable procedure to have the IUD inserted. We can also offer a cervical block, which numbs the cervix, which can also make it a less uncomfortable procedure. But anytime you dilate the cervix, the uterus contracts. So there is some cramping involved. And after an IUD is put in, our uterus recognizes that IUD as a foreign object. So we will have cramping from time to time. For most women, ibuprofen takes care of that.
All the solutions to minimize pain are offered right now at our health
Correct.
centers, right? At
Correct.
Planned Parenthood of Southeast
Yes.
Florida. Good to know, because many people, and personally I tried it, but it was years ago. It's true that it wasn't a very amazing experience because of the pain. And right now that we offer these alternatives for pain management, I think this is going to help many people with uterus and women that want to get this kind of birth control.
It's a really great method. You know, it's 99.9% effective. It's long term. So whether you, even if you, it can help with your periods. It can do lots of wonderful things, whether you choose the hormonal one or the non-hormonal. It is long term, and it's really nice that you can plan your pregnancy, live your life, not have to worry about it. Every time you want to have intercourse or any of that. I mean, it's just like taken care of for you at 99% effective rating. That's really great.
And now that you're talking about effectiveness, also Sarah, or also Alexandra, Lilera, for example, is one of the IUD options we have. And can you tell me not only effectiveness, let's talk also about duration in terms of cost. How does it compare to other hormonal IUDs?
It's actually one of the most economical IUDs you can put in if you're paying out of pocket for your IUD, and it's 8 years of birth control. So it is less than $1,000 for the IUD, the insertion, everything. And so it's good for 8 years. So what is that? $125 a year that you're paying for your IUD?
Yeah, it's an investment in yourself, 100%.
It absolutely is.
And with Valletta specifically, we do have a program called Direct Relief. So if you don't have health insurance, or, you know, depending on your income, we screen you and see if you're eligible for that program, and you may get the IUD itself for free. So Planned Parenthood has really taken off with it. I think that's amazing.
Exactly, Alex. And then it's just the cost of the insertion. It's less than $200. You can have an IUD that's 8 years of protection.
That is
amazing.
Even with the sedation, I'm saying, for people who qualify, is this sedation for pain management included so they can benefit?
That is not included in the program.
Yeah, sedation is separate because it just depends on what your preference is of type of sedation. So that can vary person to person. So your cost is depending on what kind of sedation you choose to have. But I want to backtrack for a second, because you said 8 years for Lilera, and most IUDs run around the same time, several years. We saw a significant increase. I want to say it was like 47%. I know it was a really big increase after November of patients that were seeking IUDs and going forward with IUD insertions. There is so much uncertainty out there about what is going to happen with birth control. And this is one of the most surefire methods of you knowing I secured birth control for the next 8 years and I'm taken care of and I'm good. So I think we're going to continue to see the interest and appeal in IUDs. And like you said, Sarah and Alex, we've gotten so much better at pain management and working with the patient to see what their preference is. We do offer IV sedation, but I know that then requires a second appointment because there's some prepping that we have to do with the patient to make sure, and making sure we have the provider who can do it. So there's options, and that's the best part. There's options for all the patients.
Absolutely.
The affordability of it. Liletta is one of our most affordable IUDs, but we also offer Paragard, the copper IUD, which is non-hormonal, and Mirena. Can you talk about like what are the major differences? Not with non-hormonal or hormonal, because that speaks for itself, but like if you're comparing two hormonal IUDs, what are you looking for?
Sometimes women are looking for the time frame, right? So we know that like the Skyla is a smaller device, slightly smaller device. It has less hormonal effect, still works the same way, but it's only good for 3 years. So some women think, okay, I only want it for a period of time, without really thinking through that it doesn't matter when I take it out. I can have a Liletta put in, it's good for 8 years, but in 3 years, maybe I want it removed to start my family. So it's kind of looking at the whole big picture. People think, well, it's got less hormone, the effect is going to be less. Maybe my side effect will be less. That's not necessarily always true.
Yeah. And I'm sure more and more people are doing their research, right? But they come in asking about specific IUDs.
Yes. Yeah, they do. And sometimes it's just because that's what their best friend has, or that's what they've seen on the Lifetime Network, right? We see a lot of commercials for certain IUDs, whereas the other same IUD, it just doesn't have all the publicity and the commercials behind it.
Right.
So
Right. A Liletta and a Mirena are the same exact IUD. It's just the Mirena is a lot more expensive. And it's because they have all the commercials. So you're paying for their commercials when Liletta is the exact same product.
Wow. Yeah, that's good to come in. Like, just, it's fine if you have an idea of what you want, but really listen to the staff to hear all the options, and you might end up walking out with a much more affordable IUD that does the exact same thing, and is a better option for you. That's great. I love that, and we have had a lot of patients we've been able to help during that for the direct relief program Alex mentioned. Are you hearing that patients are now becoming more familiar with Liletta, or this is the first time they've heard of it when they come into our health center?
From what I've seen, most of the time is their first time hearing specifically about Liletta. Most of them have heard about IUDs in general, but they do have questions about specifics. Can you tell me about, I heard about Mirena, or my best friend, like you said, my best friend had, Liletta. Can you tell me about, this? They'll come in with their specifics, but usually, no, they don't know about Liletta itself. And especially the direct relief Liletta, that's something that we have to really push because they're unaware of that service.
That's great. Well, I do want to just wrap up by giving the audience a chance to learn more. They can go to our website, ppsenfl.org. So that stands for Planned Parenthood Southeast North Florida. If you look at the letters, ppsenfl.org. And if you go into our birth control page, you'll see all the options that we offer. You can make an appointment to talk to one of our very skilled staff members, clinicians at our health centers to figure out what all your options are. You can also call our call center at 1-800-230-PLAN and make an appointment as well by calling on the phone. There's so many options. And there's I want to mention this. There's telehealth options too, depending on the birth control that you're trying to choose, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So you can go on the pill on telehealth, right? Which is really great. You can get the screening done and the education done and then go into the health center for your IUD insertion or your Depo-Provera shot. So yeah, we can do a combo. We can mail your pill out. If you want to go on birth control pills and you do a telehealth appointment, then you can get your pills mailed directly to you, which is really great.
It's all about convenience. And the pill packs are now $15 a pack. So
$15 a pack. Can't beat it.
Absolutely. That's our goal, to offer as much low cost or free services that we can to our community. Anything else you all want to add before we wrap this up? I feel like birth control is just one of those that we always feel like they're threatening to take away our birth control. It's so important, but just getting educated on what's happening.
That's the main thing, Michelle. Just really being educated on what's going on. Don't take, what you hear from political leaders, as face value. They're not healthcare providers. They are looking to push, whatever agenda they have, but talk to your healthcare provider after you do your research. Bring your questions into the health center. If you don't like something that was said, or you don't agree, or you feel like your healthcare provider isn't listening to you, it's okay to move around. Come on over to PP Simple. We will take care of you for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that's
just because you tried it in the past, maybe there's a different method for you, or maybe just because something worked great for your best friend or didn't work for your best friend doesn't mean it won't work for you. Yes. Come on in. We will answer these questions for you and have this discussion with you.
Yeah, we recently shared a post on our Instagram page. Go check us out at PPSCNFL. It was if you want to break up with your birth control, it's okay. Break up with your birth control. We'll get you a new one. Find a new one that works for you. You don't have to stick with something if it's not working for you. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. I'm so excited for us to be back for season 3. We expect to have dynamic conversations continued on this podcast, Birds, Bees, Bodies.
Thanks.